Mindful to respect the church property. My name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic, and we hold a big book study here every Thursday, and we get an opportunity every once in a while for somebody to come in and give us a little talk and give us a little different than what we're used to doing. And I thank you all for coming out. I got to do a little reading. Tim will do a little reading. We'll introduce Bob, who's going to do a big book workshop all day Saturday over at St. Paul's. It's going to start from all day, 10 to 4. Comes with a free lunch, and then he'll do his regular speaking that night. So he's going to do a little speaking for us now. Let me get this started real quick. The way we read here, open this up. Welcome to the Big Book Study Solution Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic, and this is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome anyone visiting here for the first time. Usually we will ask to introduce yourself with your first name, but welcome to anybody here for the first time. We have are there any AA announcements? Anything for the good of AA? Anybody like to announce tonight? Go ahead, Chris.
My name's Chris and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Chris.
I think some of you guys see some flyers for the Lollapalooza of AA, March 2nd through the 5th in Feasterville. Bob, Clancy, I got a lot of great speakers. We'd love to have you come out. If you have more questions, just come up to me or any of these guys after the meeting.
Thanks, Chris. That's going to be Lollapalooza. It's an event. Anytime of these events, they're always great to attend. If you plan on hanging around AA and having some quality sobriety, it tends to hang with the guys that are about recovery and are doing this deal. And I'll have flyers that also be posted in our Facebook page. And if you're not a member, it's kind of good to be on there because it connects so many events up and down the East Coast, all with the tri-state area. There's something exciting to do in AA almost every single night of the week, and it's always posted on there, so if you take a look at that, just stay informed, okay? We ask that you try to limit movement as much as you can. And during this big book study, which is not going to be tonight, but we ask that you please refrain from sharing personal sharing, okay? But feel free to share or ask questions as often as you like on the material being read. We ask that you bring a big book with you, so that newcomers may have it. And the purpose of the study is to analyze the big book slowly, one paragraph at a time, and compare the program we are currently working with the one in print from our founders, making adjustments where needed. We believe the big book is a textbook and was meant to be studied in groups in order to gain objectivity on its contents. The purpose of the group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. And at this time, I'm going to ask Tim to please come up and read our 1940 preamble, and then Tim will introduce Bob to come out and do the speaking. Where you at, Tim? Here he comes down. Oh.
Good evening, folks. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Tim. Before we get started, we do have a 7th tradition here. It says that, I'm going to do this from my memory. All AA groups are self-supportive. We take no contributions other than your own. If you please, we'll pass the baskets from the outside in. I'd like to read tonight for you the 1940 AA Old Preamble. We are gathered here because we are faced with the fact that we are powerless over alcohol, unable to do anything about it without the help of a power greater than ourselves. We feel that each person's religious views, if any, are his own affair. The simple purpose of the program of AA is to show that what may be done to enlist the aid of a power greater than ourselves, regardless of what our individual conception of that power may be. In order to form a habit of dependency upon and referring to all we do to that power, we must first apply ourselves with some diligence. By often repeating these acts, they become habitual, and the help rendered becomes natural to us. We have all come to know that as alcoholics we are suffering from a serious illness for which medicine has no cure. Our condition may be the result of an allergy, which makes us different from other people. It has never been by any treatment with which we are familiar, permanently cured. The only relief we have to offer is absolute abstinence, the second meaning of AA. There are no dues or fees. The only requirement for membership is desire to stop drinking. Each member squares his debt by helping others. An AA is an alcoholic who, through application and adherence to the AA program, has forsworn the use of any and all alcoholic beverages of any form. The moment he so much as takes one drop of beer, wine, spirits, or any other alcoholic beverage, he automatically loses all status as a member of AA. AA is not interested in sobering up drunks who are not sincere in their desire to remain sober for all time. Not being reformers, we offer our experience only to those who want it. We do have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and on which we can join in harmonious action. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our program. Those who do not recover are people who will not or simply cannot give themselves to this simple program. Now, you may not like how this works. The fact remains it works. It is our only chance to recover. There's a vast amount of fun in AA, lots of fellowship. Some people might be shocked by our seemingly worldliness and levity, but just underneath there lies a deadly earnestness and a full realization that we must first put things first. And for each of us, that first thing is our alcoholic problem. To drink is to die. Faith must work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. In order to set our tone for this meeting, I ask that each of us bow our heads for a few moments of silent prayer and meditation. I wish to remind you that whatever is said here at this meeting expresses our own individual opinion as of today and as of this moment. We do not speak for AA as a whole, and you are free to agree or disagree as you see fit. In fact, you are suggested that you pay no attention to anything which might not be reconciled with what is in the AA Big Book. If you don't have a Big Book, it's time you bought one. Read it, study it, live with it, loan it, scatter it, and then learn from it what it means to be AA. Thanks, guys. It's my pleasure tonight. I've had a chance to heard this fellow before, and in fact, I think I heard him at Lollapalooza. No, I'm not sure. I did hear him at Lollapalooza as well. So again, another plug for Lollapalooza. It's a wonderful event. He comes to us tonight all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada. He hardly needs an introduction, but I will give him one anyhow. Please, a nice round of applause for tonight's speaker, Mr. Bob D.
My name's Bob Darrow, and I am alcoholic. I have a bad case. I'm sober only through the grace of a God that I was afraid to believe in and didn't trust, that I've accessed through a process in one of our 3 legacies called recovery in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the ability to remain reasonably sponsorable and keep surrendering my life, and the basic principle of service that one alcoholic working with another, and as a result of those actions, I haven't had a drink or any mind or emotion-altering medication since October 31st, 1978, and that is a miracle. I'm delighted to be here. I want to thank Ron for asking me to come here. I want to thank the AA stormtroopers from the Philly speaker group who picked me up at the airport. I feel like you're joining the brown shirts of AA with them. My kind of people. I want to thank that the pastor who, where'd he go? That gave the talk at the beginning, the pastor. Oh, he's not here. I guess he heard everything he needed to hear. I want to thank him for the use of the church. Facilities of this nature are to be respected because they're hard to come by in Alcoholics Anonymous. Groups struggle all over the world to find meeting halls, and we respect those places, and we try to leave them better than we found them. Because it's only through our own selfish disregard that Alcoholics Anonymous and the way we're viewed by the people outside of AA can become tainted. And I don't know, I love AA, so I don't want every AA to ever look bad. I always want it to see its best foot forward. I'm glad to be here. I want to welcome the people that are new. Glad you're here. I possibly are more glad you're here than you are, because if you're new and like I was new, it's coming to AA was not the high point of my life. I'll tell you, oh my God. I remember ending up in my last detox, looking around going, again? Oh, geez. Again? And I kept, because that's the worst thing about alcoholism. as it progresses, it gets worse and worse and worse, and then it gets the same. And you get the agains, jail, again. They're yelling at you, again. It's just I feel like a piece of crap, again. I've hurt some people that loved me, again. And it's just, it's brutal. And I'm the best intentioned, worst actioned person you've ever met. I never meant to break anybody's heart, but I broke a bunch. I didn't mean to disappoint as many people as I did, but I disappointed a bunch. And that's what it's like to live self-obsessed, self-concerned, self-absorbed, self-focused. As the book says, we step on the toes of our fellows. Of course we do. And they retaliate. Of course they do. And they hurt us. Of course. And then here's the funny part. To us, it's seeming like for no reason. I don't know why they got mad at me. I was such a nice guy. I'm always staring obsessively at my good intentions. Unfortunately, they're only looking at my actions, which never seemed fair to me. I think you should judge me by my intentions. But well-intentioned guys don't necessarily do anything positive. I didn't know I had alcoholism. It's odd that I could have a sickness that ruled my life for years and not get it. When it says in the beginning of chapter 3 that most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics, oh man, I don't want to be an alcoholic. I'll be anything. I don't want to be an alcoholic. I'll be a mental health case, because if you're a mental health case, you get pills and sympathy. I kind of like both of those. I'm sign me up, man. I'm good for that, I'll be a drug addict, because there's a little panache in drug addiction. I mean, I was a wannabe rock star. Some of the people, my heroes I looked up to were publicly professed drug addicts. I looked up to them. I never looked up to anybody that wet their pants on a regular basis. And I had some uncles in my family that I didn't even know what, as a little kid, I didn't even know what alcoholism was, but I would hear the people I looked up to in my family label them that with almost like pathetic disgust and pity. So I'm not sure what alcoholic is, but I don't want it. But if you are born with the thirst, it doesn't matter. It's eventually going to find you. You'll be drawn to it like a moth to a flame. And you can put it off. You can say to yourself, I ain't going to be like them. But eventually your true being comes out. And I had alcoholism. I had it before I ever picked up a drink. And I see that so clearly. Now, there's no way to tell that I was alcoholic before I picked up a drink, because the litmus test for alcoholism is what Dr. Silkworth says. A physical allergy to alcohol that manifests in a phenomenon of craving. Well, you don't see that until you start drinking. But I had the other aspect of the disease before I ever picked up a drink. I didn't fit right. I worried a lot. I seemed like I was like obsessed with what people thought of me. I was lonely. I didn't fit. I could go to parties and even school, anywhere, man. It's all of you and then there's me. And I can't get through whatever that thing is between me and you. I don't know why. So I do what guys like me do. I'm a phony. I'm the beginning of Into Action. It talks about, more than most, the alcoholic has a tendency to live a double life. I create a stage character. I create a facade because I'm so scared, because I'm not enough for me. And if I'm not enough for me, I can't imagine that as is, I would be enough for you. So I create the facade. I become the pretend guy, the guy who pretends he's not afraid, the guy who pretends he fits, the guy who pretends he's okay, the guy who pretends he's tough or he's cool. But underneath, man, I know the truth. I'm none of that. I'm a phony. And by the time I was 12 years old, right before I turned 13, I'll tell you, it was harder. It's becoming very, very hard to keep up that facade. It was like it was crumbling. And I walked around with a lot of fear that somebody was going to see through me and see how phony I was, that I wasn't really tough, I wasn't really cool, I really didn't fit, that I really wasn't fearless like I put out, that I was a scared, pathetic, lonely kid. And because the facade was frightening to keep maintaining it all the time. I think I found alcohol, I think alcohol and I came together by divine appointment. I saw a documentary a couple of years ago about one of those teenagers who went off the deep end and killed a bunch of kids at school, right? Now, your first reaction, especially if you're in AA, you think, well, he must have been really high on something. No, he wasn't high on nothing. He never got high. And they started interviewing people who knew him. And it was like they were talking about me right before I took my first drink. Getting resentful, cliquey people, starting to hate people at school because they're cliquey. Start imagining people are thinking stuff about you. Oh, did you ever do that when you were a kid? I had to watch people because I knew they were thinking stuff. I don't know what they're thinking, but I suspect it's about me, so you got to keep an eye on them all the time. And I think I found alcohol. I think I could have had some kind of psychotic break. My sponsor one time, 30 years ago, in talk, he said he talked about psychosis, and he said alcoholics very seldom ever have a psychotic break because we go get drunk and it's like opening a valve that lets all the steam out so we don't have to snap, right? And I found alcohol when I was almost 13 years old, and it just changed my life. And I didn't know it. I never sat there and went, hey guys, this changed my life. I never thought that, but it changed my life. And what really happened is it set me free. There's only one freedom that means anything, and I think that freedom in and of itself contains all freedoms, and that's the freedom from the bondage of self. Alcohol, I didn't know this, but alcohol freed me from the bondage of self, and I could come out and play, and I could feel intimate and connected to people. It was as if my real nature came out. I could be funny. I'm not funny when I'm sober. I'm a mope. You get me half drunk, I'm funny. I crack me up. I am funny. Sober, I'm not funny. I could talk to girls when I get drunk. I can't talk to girls. Oh my God, they just scare the crap out of me. I don't mean to be crude, but if it wasn't for alcohol, I'd probably be celibate to this day. I don't know. Jesus, how could you do that? How do you face that kind of rejection? My God. I can't just ask someone to date. Before I even get to the point where I'm even thinking about it, I already know what school our kids are going to go to. You know what I mean? I build castles in the air and just hope somebody moves in, right? Alcohol really did for me what I couldn't do for myself, and I loved it. I loved the effect. And I'll tell you something, if alcohol didn't do for you at one time what it did for me, I don't know how the hell you would let it do to you later what it's going to do to you if you're an alcoholic, except that I'm trying to recapture what it had once done for me. And what it did for me was perfect. I was a human being. I love what Wilson says in his story. He says, I was a part of life at last. That thing that's between me and life and between me and you would just go away when I'd get drunk. I loved it. But I got alcoholism. Now, I don't know I got alcoholism, but I got alcoholism, and every time I drink, the same thing happens to me, and it happened year after year after year, and I couldn't see it. And then I clouded the waters with, heroin and methadone and all kinds of other drugs and stuff, which makes it even harder to see. I couldn't see the allergic reaction to alcohol. But every time I ever drank, without exception, as the effect of the alcohol hit me, I would be overcome with this incredible yearning for more. You say, more of what? What do you got? I mean, if I was at your house and we're drinking beer and we run out and there ain't no more and there ain't no getting more, I'll go to your medicine cabinet and I'll just take whatever's in there, man. I don't even care. Half the time I'm just desperate. I took pills that made me up for a day and a half, like planning to overthrow the government and stuff. I mean, it was just, we're going to change the world, I took other pills that turned my legs to rubber, and I'd be like falling and right. One time I got real regular. One time I didn't know what I was doing. I ate all the pills off some wheel and found out there's no chance I'll be pregnant in my lifetime. What is that about? Am I a drug addict? No, I'm an alcoholic who's driven by an allergic reaction to alcohol. And that's always been there for me. I can't tell you one time from the first time I got lit up to the last checking into my last detox, not one time where I'd ever been drinking and had someone say to me, "Hey, Bob, can I buy you another one?" Where I looked at them and thought to myself genuinely, "No, I'm good, thanks. I never could get there." It's always, what happens is I head towards there and I can see it and I can almost touch it and it makes me crazy. More. I can't get there. Then you know what happens. You're coming to somewhere, and then the people are, those untreated Al-Anons sitting around waiting to tell you what you did that you can't remember. They can't wait. It's like Christmas for them. They can't wait to tell you. And I don't know about you, but I never did anything good in a blackout. Nobody came up to me the next day and said, "Oh, Bob, you were so helpful last night." You peed in our kitchen. Threw up in my living room, you hit on my wife, you hit on my grandmother, hit on my dog, stole my stash, passed out on my front lawn. You told everybody you beat Bruce Lee in a karate match. Oh. And you hear that stuff. And in the beginning, you think that it's some kind of conspiracy. They're making crap up about you. But after a couple years of blackouts, you start realizing something here is happening to me. It's like I go away and some stupid people come back and take in my body. They took over my body. I remember I was in a rehab. The movie The Exorcist came out. Everybody in the rehab's excited to go see this Exorcist movie. I am not going to go see that movie. Because I just thought, I might find out that I'm possessed. No, because it would make sense, because it's like some demonic person that comes and does stuff when I'm not there, and then they leave me with the consequences of all that crap. I don't know if you ever had the experience. Weird things just happened to me. Like one time, I come out of a blackout, I'm sitting behind the wheel of a car, and I'm having a conversation with a cop. And I don't know what the conversation's about. This is frightening. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to have bracelets on. I don't know what's going on. It was as if somebody just beamed me from another planet into that driver's seat. And there I am. That used to happen to me a lot. I came to in jail, several times with ink on my fingers. I don't even remember being arrested. I don't. And they just tell you what you did, and you don't know. You can't defend yourself. What are you going to say? I couldn't have done that. I just got here. What do you say? You can't. There's no defense against that, right? It's horrible. And so, as a result of the consequences of my drinking and drug use, I start to really want to change. I want to stop this. Now, the first couple times I went to treatment, I didn't go because I wanted to quit. I just wanted to get the people off my back. I mean, the first time I ever went to a treatment center was because I got hooked into some of those guys that were, it was late, towards the end of the Vietnam War, I got hooked into some people. My mother always told me this, you're a good boy, you just hang out with the wrong people. Their mothers told them that about me, I think. But I got hooked into some guys, businessmen, they just liked me. I was nice guys, really. They were part of that syndicate that was bringing the thousands of kilos of China white back from Vietnam towards the end of the Vietnam War. And they were just giving me like huge amounts. Just here, just bring us the money. You can't do that to an alcoholic. Alcoholics shouldn't do drugs. We do drugs alcoholically. But that guy, the opportunity that guy gave me, I should have been a millionaire. I still owe him money, right? No, I mean, it's bad. And then I got walked away from that. And I could walk away from the drugs, but I couldn't walk away from alcohol. I couldn't. And I think my little soiree into drugs was, as the sun was setting on my alcoholism and on the magical effect, I just became more and more desperate for relief. And as alcohol as all the fun and relief and ease and comfort was bleeding out of that, I'm just throwing crap in the mix, whatever I can get. And then, the last few years, I just drank a lot of Richard's Wild Irish Rose, some Thunderbird, cheap vodka. I was a frugal drinker. I'd go to I had this ability in my mind to go to a state store and do the math. Proof, volume, dollars. And the whole point is, I don't care about taste. I want the most amount of blot bob out medicine for the least amount of money. And that's the way I drank. I was an oblivion drinker the last several years. There was no more party in it. And so now I drank into patheticness. I drank in depression. Sometimes I'd cry because I just hated what I've done to people that cared about me. I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated more than anything the fact that when I drink this stuff, it doesn't do what it used to do. And I don't know why. And this isn't a party. It's pathetic. I don't bathe at the last couple of years. Well, you get busy, but I don't bathe. The truth is, I don't care. I just seek to blot me out. It's not a party. It's pathetic. And I don't know what's wrong with it. And I don't get that it's alcoholism for a while. And then something happened to me. I sat in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was in a treatment center. And I listened to someone share a story, and I connected the dots on something that I could not ever see because it uses my own mind against me. I started to see so clearly, I got that thing that you guys have been talking about for years. I could never see it and Chamberlain used to say, my grant sponsor, you can only see what you can see when you can see it. I couldn't see it, and then I could see it. That every time I drink, I can't stop. For a guy like me to pick up a drink, it's like having sex with a gorilla. You ain't done till the gorilla's done. You know what I'm saying? You can tell yourself, I think me and the gorilla are just going to have a dance. No, you're not. It's bad. It's bad. So I get that. I get that I'm that guy. And I think, because my ego's wired this way, I think that I will find power in knowledge. I did the same thing in AA for a while. I became obsessively a student of the steps in the big book, and as if I'm going to find power in knowledge. But there is no power in knowledge. Sadly enough, if knowledge is anything to people like us, it's fodder for our egos to puff us up into some kind of smug state of intellectual or emotional or spiritual superiority. And I never could find, but I thought at that time, now that I know that I have that weird thing with alcohol and other drugs too, I can't take anything, because if it does that thing for me, if it lights me up at all, if it does that thing for me, it's going to do that thing to me where I can't stop. And so I get it, and I swore to myself, and I remember the feeling at one point I was in this treatment center. I thought, oh, it's about time. Boy, I'm so glad I know, I can see this now. And I felt like I was going to turn my life around now that I know. Because I think if you really, really know, coupled with, a serious determination not to pick up the first drink, I thought I would be home free. Made perfect sense to me. Because I had all kinds of willpower in other areas. I could be out drinking till 4 and 5 in the morning and be at work at 7. Now, that takes some willpower. So I thought, I'm out of the woods. And little did I imagine that I was entering into the most horrific, the most degrading, the most demoralizing years of my life that would eventually put me into such anguish and self-loathing and hopelessness that I would try to take my own life. Because alcoholism is so much more than a problem with alcohol and even alcohol and drugs. It's so much more than that. That's half of the equation. And you know how you know that you get that half is you try year after year to control and enjoy your drinking, and you fail and you fail and you fail and you fail and you get it. I can't jumpstart the party. I can't enjoy it like I used to. I don't know why. At the end of my drinking, I hated to go to parties and bars because there were people there that were lit up from drinking. They were getting what I used to get, and it break my heart. I used to resent people that were, because I'm miserable now when I drink. And I get that I don't take the first drink, and what happens to me is I always go back to it. No matter how high the level of determination is, no matter how much I really get it, that this is going to kill me, I always go back to it. I don't mean to, but I do. And I can't stop that. And so I thought, like a lot of us think, I thought it's not alcoholism. It's got to be some sort of mental illness. Because you do, if you're like me, I don't have a shortage of studying myself. I'm a guy who studied himself a lot. That's why they tell guys I sponsor that they run into these guys that they want to do an inventory every 6 months, or written long 4-step. Just do step 10, 11. We look for correction. We don't stare. But I like to stare. I like to study myself. I just think if I really look at all the little emotional and mental nuances, that I'm going to uncover something that's going to change me. And I never could. But I went to some great psychiatrists. My mother was a therapist. Through a bizarre series of circumstances, I worked in the field for a little while. Not too far. I worked in some places not too far from here. I worked at a place on, so funny, a place called the Pottstown Area Drug Rehabilitation Program in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, on High Street. Now tell me God don't have a sense of humor, right? And I was a therapist there. I did very good until the day they fired me for being drunk on the job. They don't like that. But the knowledge didn't help me. And I started going through this thing I didn't understand. It's baffling when it uses, I love the word baffled. It says we're a baffled lot, and it talks about alcoholism being not only cunning, but baffling and powerful. It does stuff for me I can't imagine. Because, if you're like me and you're in the county jail, Or you're in the detox and you're so broken and beaten up and disgusted with yourself. It's almost as if, oh, I will never do this again. I can't imagine. I can never do this again. And then what happens? Well, you start feeling a little better physically. Okay, it's getting better. Maybe you go out and you get a nice little job, get a little bit of money in my pocket. Money always feels like power to me. Next thing you know, I got a girlfriend, got a car, got an apartment, got drunk. I did that over and over and over again. And the crazy thing about this, for me, that was really baffling is usually I would go back to drinking and burn my life to the ground when externally and materially it was better than it's been in a long time. How could that happen? Everybody, my mother and father would get their hope. One of the worst things I did to my mom and dad is I used to get their hopes back up. Because I'd get sober, I'd be sober 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 4 months, and I'd be doing good. And everybody's looking at me and what I'm doing, and oh my God, Bob, he got a raise, he's got a nice girlfriend, she's not a stoner, she's a nice girlfriend. He's doing well. And just about the time that my family could breathe again, he's okay. That's about the time I would burn my freaking life to the ground. Time and time and time again. And here's what's confusing. Out here, I have now many things to look at and sort of look at as if I should be okay. I got this, I got that, I got that, I got that, I got that. I should even be grateful. But I have an inability to feel gratitude. If you've ever been a couple months sober with untreated alcoholism, which means you haven't had a spiritual experience, you haven't surrendered yet, and it's all you, it's all you. And you go to an Alcoholics Anonymous discussion meeting and the subject's gratitude. First of all, I hate meetings like that. But my ego is like, I hate the subject of gratitude, but I'm so obsessed with what you think of me. If I get called on, I will give you a little intellectual litany of things intellectually I know I should be grateful for. I'm just so grateful. I'm not in jail. There's a little voice in my head goes, big deal. I got a good job. It's a stupid job. Right? I got this girlfriend. But she's not what I thought she was. You know, it's because I'm a chronic malcontent and self-obsessed, self-focused, selfish people like me, we're always malcontent because nothing ever measures up. I was 10 years sober and I was working with a guy at Indian Springs Prison in Nevada, and he said something to me and it floored me because it was like a window opened and I could see for the first time where all the malcontent came from. Why, no matter what wonderful thing that I bring into my life, how the shine of it wears off so quickly. And the guy, we're having this conversation with this inmate, and he said something, and all of a sudden I got it. That alcohol did something for me at one time that was so needed and so spectacular that I had no idea that it would spoil me in such a way that I would compare what it's like to be in that relationship with her to what it felt like to have 5 shots of tequila. Now she's pissing me off, you know what I'm saying? I'd compare what it's like to have that job in that steel mill, the job I always wanted, the big money job, what that felt like against what it felt like to have a pint of rum. And now the people there are stupid and they're taking advantage of me. And everything pales by comparison. Because the truth is, what I want so desperately is I want to get free again, like I got free when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, 20 years old even, from drinking alcohol. I want the freedom, and I can't get it. And I think that's the worst thing that this disease did to me and does to most of us. It's the fabric that suicide's woven out of it. Is that after it robs you of everything you've ever loved, and now your mother and father they can't take it anymore. They will have nothing to do with you. And your girlfriend can't stand to be around you anymore. You broke her heart too many times. Maybe your siblings will have nothing to do with you. Your running partners, you were like this at one time, now are like this with you. And you're totally alone. And you can't even effectively divert yourself from the remorse and shame of the things you did to those people that loved you. And it's becoming harder and harder to make it their fault. And you're starting to know whose fault it is. And it's tough. And at that point, I need the effect of alcohol more than I've ever needed it in my life. And when I need it the most, after burning my life to the ground, the sickness has pulled the plug on the effect, and I can't even get high right no more. And instead of having alcohol relieve me of the bondage of self, it made me more self-obsessed and more depressed and more stuck up in me with my feelings and thoughts. And so I tried to take my own life because I knew something. I knew from trial and error and failure and failure and failure, I knew that this delusion that somehow, someday, some way, with the right combination of stuff that I was going to control, which means I'm going to get away with it, and enjoy, which means I'm going to get lit up again and get free, my drinking. And I knew that that's a delusion, that it's never, ever going to happen again. And when I knew that, in my innermost self, I couldn't imagine living another day. Because I got a big secret. See, without something, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. And I don't want anybody to know that. I can't imagine life without something. I know good. And the therapist, I've been to so many psychiatrists. And, I've had all these diagnoses. And, I'm one of those kind of guys. I'm always looking for hope. Hope about killed me. Because if you're one of those guys that always tries to find hope, you'll never find desperation and surrender. Hope got my way continually. The hope that I could manage either side of the equation. Either I could somehow, through a right combination of alcohol and medication and other drugs, maybe I could get back to the party days. If I could manage that side of the equation, the getting high side, I'd never had to come to AA. I'd be good. I'd just do that. And be willing to pay intermittent prices. Like, to me, in my alcohol logic, 6 months in jail every year for 6 months of partying seems like a good deal to me. Right? I'm willing to do that. But what do you do when you've tried and tried and tried? There is no more party. There's just patheticness. And can't manage that side of the equation. And I've been to therapy and taken meds, psych meds, all kinds of things for anxiety, for depression, for sleeplessness, all kinds of stuff. And I've done some great work in therapy trying to manage the abstinent part of the equation, because if I could get that right, I wouldn't have to go back to that madness. If I could find a way to be happy and satisfied, sober, I'd be good. And year after year, therapist after therapist, treatment center after treatment center, girlfriend after girlfriend, job after job, town after town, it always failed. My grand sponsor Chuck used to say that if you're an alcoholic and you haven't surrendered a spiritual awakening, no matter what you do, you're eventually going to get to a place where you can no longer find anything to put between you and you. And there you are. And there you are. And that ain't no good. Because it's never been any good for me. And I tried to take my own life in 1978. It's funny, it's in my years as a counseling and stuff like that, I worked for a place here in Pennsylvania called Help. And I used to train, by role play, I used to train counselors to answer these hotlines and do crisis intervention, suicide prevention. And then that was one of my jobs. I was one of the trainers for that. And I remember that I wouldn't have ever said this to anyone because it would be so, not only politically incorrect, it would have seemed so like crass and like awful to say it. But I used to kind of mentally, and with one or two of my buddies, almost make fun of people who were suicidal as if they were weak and pathetic, because I couldn't imagine myself ever doing that. It's just, oh my God. You know why I can't imagine myself ever committing suicide? Because my first thought is, well, why don't you go get drunk, for God's sakes? See, I still had something that I thought worked. And if you would have told me at that point that I would eventually get to a place of such hopelessness and such emotional anguish that I would be trying to take my own life to escape the feelings, I wouldn't have believed it was possible. But the progression of alcoholism knows no bounds. There's so many of us that die by our own hands. And it doesn't always show up on death certificates like that. It shows up like, oh, he must have lost control and ran his car into a bridge abutment. Maybe he found control. Or he overdosed on drugs. Or, he shot an air bubble. Must have been a mistake. Oh, he went into that bar and started some crap with those outlaw bikers. That was just stupid, wasn't it? Maybe it wasn't stupid. My friend, one of my running partners, Sonny, he went into the most heavily armed bank in Chicago, where they had like walks around the outside, around the top, with guys with shotguns and stuff, guns. He went in there with an unloaded shotgun. He didn't go in there to rob that bank. He went in there to commit suicide by police. And he did. They put so many bullet holes in him. It was almost instantaneous. So many of us take our own lives because we're in a trap we can't spring. Everything that made life bearable doesn't work anymore. And we can't live without it. The book talks about this place where you can't live with it and you can't live without it. It calls it the jumping off place. It says we'll wish for the end. And I was very fortunate. I've seen a lot of people commit suicide with many, many, many years of sobriety. Because alcoholism kills alcoholics. It's not alcohol. Alcohol, it may be part of the vehicle to your death, but it's alcoholism that kills alcoholics. I had a dear friend, a woman named Debbie, who, when I was new, in my first 2 years, she was one of my go-to people. I love Debbie. Her and her partner, Nancy, I used to go hang out with them, and they were great, just amazing. She was involved in every aspect of service, GSR, the roundup, everything, intergroup. They were amazing people. And they were some of the people that pushed me into service. And, matter of fact, the first time I ever told my story, Debbie and Nancy got me to do it. They were speaker chair for the Las Vegas Roundup. They needed a young people speaker. First time, I tell you what, doing some cruel stuff. I'm terrified at public speaking, and they asked me 6 months ahead of time. This sounds crazy, but I don't want to drink, but I remember thinking, the anxiety was so intense. I remember thinking, if I drank, I could get out of this. It was crazy. That's how scared I was. But Debbie was an amazing woman, and at 43 and a half years of sobriety, without ever picking up a drink, she put a pistol to her head and blew her brains out. And some of you think, wow, she must have had some mental illness. No, she had untreated alcoholism. Because if you looked at the backstory of Debbie's life, she hadn't had a sponsor in 15 years. She didn't go to meetings much anymore. She would go once in a while to a meeting in a women's recovery house. Maybe she'd go there once every 2 months because she was on the board. She didn't sponsor anybody. I'm sure she didn't have been doing anything in the steps, and let alone the traditions. How can you be practicing the traditions as a spiritual way of life when you're not even going to AA? I mean, AA is the kindergarten for the principles of the traditions that would you eventually take out into the world. It changes your relationships, and it changes your business, and it changes everywhere you interact with people. She didn't have any of that. She had no service, no recovery, no unity. I put myself in her position. How many years could I take that? Because alcoholism, untreated alcoholism in sobriety is really a lonely, lonely business. Because what happens to me is I fill up with myself. And I get myself right here. I can't get me off of me. And some of you, if any of you have ever suffered from depression when you get sober, you know you can't think your way out of it. You can't will it away. You can act it away through actions, spiritual in nature, that were designed to do the thing that I always will need to have done. And that's to relieve me of the bondage of self. The reason I always have to take those actions and always get that done is because I can work the steps. I can spend a day with a newcomer, listen to his 5th step. I can be so lit up, I need a tent and a tambourine. I'm like a toilet. I just did all these spiritual actions. It's like flushing the toilet. I just empty myself out of Bob. And then immediately I just start filling up with me again. And that is the chronic nature of alcoholism, of this spiritual malady. It's not just that I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol and I really should not drink because I always burn my life to the ground. I got an abnormal reaction to abstinence. And without a program, a transformational and retransformational program in my life, I don't have any hope. And I'll tell you, and oddly enough, I do a lot of AA. I probably go to 8 meetings a week. I have 3 panels every week. I have commitments at my home group. I really try with myself and the guys I sponsor to maintain action in all 3 legacies. And not just so you can say it. If you were to come to my home group, you could ask those people in that group. They all know that's my home group. You can call my sponsor up today, and he knows he's my sponsor because I'm sponsorable. It's all through the actions. And so even doing all of that, I still have had times in sobriety where I'm weird. If I get weird a little bit doing all that, what would happen to me if I stopped doing all that? Oh my God, I'd go nuclear. I'd be on a clock tower with a rifle or something. Because they're doing stuff to me. Yeah, I'd be out. One day I'd be shooting the Trump protesters. The next day I'd be trying to shoot Trump. I just wouldn't even matter. I'm an equal opportunity resenter. I just eventually, because I know I resent everybody. Leave me alone. I just notice stuff So I do AA, and what happens? Here's what happens 99% of the time. And if it's not that way 1%, it corrects itself and goes back. As a result of Alcoholics Anonymous, the world's a pretty nice place. The world's a pretty comfortable place. As a result of staying connected to you through my actions, I want to come to one of my home groups. come an hour early. I'll be there before you will. Because it's not what I feel, it's not what I learn, it's not what I think or what I know, it's only what I do. Every day is a day where I try to present myself to life like I mean this crap, right? Present myself to the universe like I mean it. Because it's all there is action. I heard a guy 35 years ago say that AA could also stand for altered attitudes. Didn't like that much because everybody's always telling me I have a bad attitude. I don't know what that means. And then a guy who was a pilot, he was talking about, he said attitude is you set your attitude when you're landing a plane, it's your angle of approach. And I thought, oh, it's my angle of approach that's so screwed up because I have the angle of approach of a taker, of a selfish, self-seeker, self-concerned, self-obsessed, self-absorbed guy. Of course I'm crashing my plane, drunk or sober. And Alcoholics Anonymous has slowly started to move me a little bit from self-reliance to God-reliance, from a life driven by fear and worry to a life based on trusting in this power. And trust is not easy for guys like me. I get sober, trust is like an unused muscle that's atrophied, because I don't trust nobody. Because I'm the deep, self-centered, selfish thinkers. We don't trust anybody except, here's the funny part, I trust this. With my track record, I trust this. Oh my God, that's crazy. I'd be better off having Charles Manson as a spiritual advisor than trusting this. You know, it's crazy. I had a guy when I was new come up to me and he said, "Kid, you need to take step 3. And I said, "Joe, I don't believe in God." He said, "You don't need to believe in God." He said, "Turn your will and your life over this chair. I guarantee you a miracle." And I said, "Okay, Joe." I turned my will and life over the chair. And Joe goes, gets a big smile. He says, "The miracle is your life's no longer in the hands of an idiot." Right? I said, and I saw it. I mean, I saw it. I had woken up a little bit to see it, because somebody would have said that to me in a period of sobriety the year before, I'd have just, you know what, you're stupid. But I must have been surrendered enough and awake enough that when he said that your life will be out of the hands of an idiot, I stood there and I thought, man, that'd be right, wouldn't it? Because I was starting to see the big picture. Because I don't see the big picture. I look at my life like looking through a toilet paper roll, right? I see the little story about Bob. Now I'm starting, and I think that's 90% of the awakening here, is I start to wake up to the truth. I start to see me the way my mother and father saw me. And this was our course, which is the crucial turning point in step 4. When I was able to do that, in all my resentments, man, I became small because I realized how wrong I'd been about everything. How wrong I'd been about them, when you start looking at it from their side of the street, I don't stop looking at it through the justifications and real rationalizations, but start looking at it through their eyes. Imagine some of the people that you've resented. What if one of them would have joined a 12-step program because the wheels fell off in their life and they were writing a resentment inventory and they put your name in column number 1? What is their column 2 going to look like? Well, it's going to be wrong is what it's going to be. Because they're stupid. No, it'll probably be Father Martin, a greater assessment than I could give myself. Father Martin one time said something. He said, you know, it's weird in AA, we get up and we tell our stories. He said a more genuine thing would to have our wives come up there and tell our stories. It's like, oh no. I have a guy sponsor. He's sober guy, pushing, coming up close. He's heading towards 30, and He's a good guy, very active in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got him doing step 11, which step 11 has this big piece of self-examination at night before you reposition and realign your will with God's in the morning to start the day off like that. And I said, I want you to do that every night. And he said, I can't seem to discipline myself. I said, okay, that's fine. A lot of us are like that. I said, I'm going to help you. Now, I don't need to hear or see the answers to those questions, but you need the accountability to get into the habit of doing it. So I want you to email me the answer to the questions on the top of page 86 every night before you go to bed. He's a pretty good guy. He said, okay, I'll make a commitment to do that. And sure enough, I started getting these emails. And was I selfish? No. No. Kind and loving? Yes. No. Well, that's great. Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. And then next day, same thing. No, he said, no problem. No, good. Wow, 2 days in a row. Jeez, he should sponsor me. I think. Jeez. Well, after about 3 weeks of this, I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is stupid. Nobody goes through life without having any anxiety or fear, any selfishness, no resentment. It's crazy. So I called him up and I said, hey, you're just like, you're perfect every day. He said, well, I'm doing very well. My life's really good. I said, come on. He said, no, really, I don't have any problems. It's really, AA's working, evidently. I'm doing really well. I said, oh, okay, would you do something for me? And the guy's very willing. I said, I want you to write those questions out on a piece of paper. I want you to make about 100 copies, and I want you to give them to your wife to answer about you every night. And there was this silence on the phone. And then I hear this voice, he goes, that's not fair. Right? When it all sorted out and he thought, because all of a sudden he realized, it wouldn't look quite like that to her. See, we sometimes can't see ourselves. And I think, as my grant sponsor used to say, it's a process of uncovering, discovering, and discarding all the things that stand between me and you, and me and God, and me and life itself. I drank for connectedness. I drank because I was lonely. I drank to be a part of. I drank to be connected to life and the universe. And I do AA for exactly the same reason. Nothing's changed here except the methodology. What I used to get from bending my elbow, now I get from a whole bunch of other actions. And the nice thing is it works. It's an amazing thing. But if you're new here, you will doubt that it works. And matter of fact, you may even be convinced that it won't work because you suspect your case is a little more complex and deeper than the rest of us. But I understand that. You won't know that AA works until after you do it for a while. No one that I've ever met in AA has come to AA and looked at those 12 steps and looked at the service commitments and looked at the fellowship and looked at the whole package here, the 12-step work, everything, and said to themselves, oh yeah, that'll work, oh yeah. We don't say that at all. Nobody says that. Except that Al-Anon, it'll work for him, but none of us say that. The steps, matter of fact, if you're new and you're hopeless, the steps look like some kind of punishment for being a bad guy, They look horrid, really. Turn your will and your life over to the care of God. Oh, no, come on. You mean the guy with the book that can see in the dark and knows what I've been thinking? That guy? Make amends? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. And then after you pay back every dime you're probably going to make for the rest of your life, then you get to go help people. Whoopee. Right? Oh, this looks like the gift, all right? And yet, those actions are transformational because they free me from the bondage of self. I'll tell you 2 little stories. I just shared this at the detox, and a couple of the guys I sponsor said, man, why don't you tell that story more often? I said, I used to tell it all the time back in the late 70s and early 80s, and I stopped telling it. Because a bunch of other guys started telling it. It's fine, I don't really need to tell it. They said, no, you should tell that story. And story is that there's this guy, he's got the day off, and he's sitting in his easy chair. He just wants to relax. He just wants some easy time. He's reading a newspaper. He's got a 4-year-old daughter who he loves, but she's a little rambunctious, and she's coming up to him, Daddy, play with me, play with me. It's not that he doesn't love his daughter, he loves his daughter, but he wants to just sit and relax for a little bit and read the newspaper. And she persists, Daddy, please play with me. And he says, all right, I'll tell you what. And in the back of the front section is a ad for an airlines. And it's a map of the world showing where all the flights go. So he tears it out of the newspaper, this map of the world, and he tears it up into little pieces, gets a roll of Scotch tape, and says, here, sweetheart, here's a puzzle, take this in your room, when you tape it together, bring it back, and I'll play with you for the rest of the day. And he settles in, because she's 4 years old. She's not going to put together a map of the world. She doesn't even know what it looks like. 15 minutes later, she comes running out. She's so excited. Daddy, here it is. And it's put together perfectly. And he's gone, oh my God, sweetheart, how'd you do that? Oh, it was easy, Daddy. On the back was a picture of a man. When I put the man together, the world just kind of fell into place. It's an inside job. Some of us come here and we make the mistake. We want the outsides to be good because they clamor at us. Oh my God. That delusion that I'm a victim of, that if I could wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world, if I only managed well, if I had the right wife, the right amount of money, the right house, the right motorcycle, the right car, the right, that I would be right. But you cannot fix an inside sickness with outside stuff. And if anyone's ever tried harder, no one has ever tried harder than us. And so we come here and you get a sponsor, and your sponsor says, go here every night. Okay. You're going to be a greeter. Oh, I hate that. Okay. You're going to go to the detox a couple times a week. Well, those people are new. They can't even help me. Well, you're not going for them. Well, then why would I go? You're going for you're going to help them. You're not going for you. And you start doing that stuff, and next thing you know, you're sponsoring a couple guys. And you have a sponsor, and you're talking to him, and you're developing a relationship based on honesty. Because in the beginning, with my sponsor, I was afraid of him. I didn't want to risk his disapproval. So I had to put my best foot forward all the time with him, because I didn't want him to see my underbelly, all the little squirmy things that I'm kind of ashamed of. And over the years, I started to open up to him until he knew everything about me and loved me more for that, which surprises me to this day sometimes. That when you knew the things about me that I didn't like, you even loved me more for them. And I'll end with this. I was in Northern California 28 years ago. I was asked to speak at a monthly thing up on the coast near the Oregon border. And I had a whole day up there to kill this guy. He says, let me show you around. He put me in his truck and he took me to this forest that was unlike anything I'd ever seen. They had trees there that were like 25 feet in diameter, 250 feet high. I walked through this forest. We were there for 45 minutes, an hour maybe. It was like being in Jurassic Park. I mean, you could imagine like a dinosaur poking around his head around one of those trees. It was amazing. And that God could be that in your face amazing. So the guy says, come on, I want to show you some other stuff. We're going to go down to the ocean. We've got a little ways to go. We're going to go out and see these rock monoliths that rise up out of the ocean and the cliffs down there. It's really beautiful. I said, oh, yeah, good, let's go. So we're in his truck and we're driving. And we're going by these meadows and fields. And he said to me, he said, do you notice how you don't see a 250-foot tree all by itself in one of those fields? I said, yeah. He said, you know why that is? I said, no, I don't. He said, well, God has created those trees in such a way that they cannot help but to aspire to grow to such magnificent heights that they cannot grow up alone. And what must happen is that they must grow up in community, and they intertwine their roots into a net below the floor of the forest, and they feed and support each other. And that community allows them to grow into their magnificent nature. And I thought, my God, that's exactly what Alcoholics Anonymous has been for me. I've always been the guy who wants more. I've always been the guy who wants to take bigger bites out of life, to experience more, to feel more. When I started connecting with God, I want more God. When I started helping others, I want to help more others. I'm a chronic malcontent. As Ed Dowling told Bill Wilson, he called it divine dissatisfaction, because it's the thing that drives you and pushes you to becoming more than what you are. In God's hands, it's beautiful. Alone, it almost killed me. And so in Alcoholics Anonymous, I enmesh my life with yours. And if you're part of a group and you think, well, I don't know if I like everybody in my home group. If you like everybody in AA, you're not going to enough meetings. How do you think guys like me learn love and tolerance? By sitting at home by myself? No, because I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, the judgments and the opinions rise up, and I work the process of the steps to dismantle them, and my ego puffs up, and I have to notch it down, and it puffs up, and I notch it down. And it's good. I like my life. I like the fact that I care about people today. I like the fact that I have a daughter who's, I feel old saying this, I'm too young to have a daughter that's 29 years old. My daughter's 29 years old. She's never seen her dad drunk. She loves me. I'm her hero. She just thinks I'm the most amazing. My sister tries to dismantle that by telling my daughter stories about me. And my daughter goes, oh, Dad, you didn't do that? Yes, I did. Yeah. I can't believe that, Dad. Well, yeah. That's me. And she is not alcoholic. She is one of the most principled, altruistic people with an uncompromisable moral compass. Mine, not so much. I'll tell you how uncompromisable hers. We have a daddy-daughter date night once a week. We usually go to dinner and a movie, and I've been taking her to the movies since she was a little kid. Well, when I hit, not too long ago, I hit 60. When you're 60, you get those cheap tickets, right? And now all the movie theaters have the kiosks where you put your credit card in and you get the tickets. So I get 2 senior tickets. I've been doing that for a while. I give them, one day I'm going in, I give the ticket to my daughter, and she goes, oh, Dad, this isn't my ticket, this is your ticket. I said, what do you mean, kid? She said, no, it's a senior ticket. Well, they're both senior tickets. Dad, you can't do that. And she went back over she went and paid for it. I felt like this big. I felt like saying, would you sponsor me? And here's the bizarre, this is why I need sponsors and sponsees, I need all of it. because until that moment, it never occurred to me that I was a liar, a cheat, and a thief. It never occurred to me. That's frightening. But she brought it to me, and God brings it to you, and God talks through people, and you want to hear the voice of God, stay in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. He will express himself through our consciousness here in the group. Thanks for listening.
That's pretty epic. We like to thank Bob one more time, and it's very customary. Come all the way out. Please take a moment to thank our speaker, form a line, and show him the gratitude for coming to Doylestown. And hopefully we'll see you guys Saturday morning. We kick off at 10 a.m. Hopefully you'll get there at 9:30. And Mrs. K has been brewing 3 giant pots of this awesome tomato sauce that I got to sample tonight. So we'll see you there. Comes with that free lunch, and we'll have some fun. We got a nice way of closing if you care to join us. And the meeting after the meeting downstairs, we'll finish up that food. Thanks for coming out.